Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and today we are going to be checking out Berserk Boy.
Yes, this comes to us as a Patreon review request from Brian Reese. Thank you for the support. So, there are about 1 billion retro-style platformers on the market these days. Does this game do enough to set itself apart from the pack? Well, we're about to find out.
Not really.
Kind of. Originally released on March 6, 2024, this is a retro 2D action platformer inspired game developed and published by Berserk Boy Games. In it, you use the powers of lightning, fire, earth, air, and ice to save the world from Dr. Genos. This originally came out on the PC on Steam, but it was eventually released on the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation family of consoles, and on good old games. This game takes heavy inspiration from Mega Man. It's just apparent. But it kind of does enough and mixes in a little bit of other stuff to try and set itself apart. It's got some good, it's got some bad. Let's get into it.
Jim, you're forgetting the best part.
What, Brian?
Really, the savior in this game is Dr. Quinn, who helps him find all of his powers.
Shut your whore mouth.
I'm just saying.
I will not give you that.
Tell me if I'm wrong.
You are wrong, and I hate you.
But how else can you utilize the orbs without Dr. Quinn?
You're no medicine woman.
Damn it, no one's gonna know that these days.
I'm old.
The graphics. Jim already mentioned it, and you're gonna hear us repeat it a few times. This game takes a ton of inspiration from Mega Man. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. They do try to change it up a little bit, but the structure of the actual levels themselves are broken down into 5 main hubs, I'll call them, each with an individual mission. And there's an overarching theme to each of them. Like the first level, it's a city, and you're working towards getting your lightning power. And then the next one is fire, then ice, etc. It's all things you've seen before. When it comes to the actual sprites and models themselves, I have an odd complaint because they are very well detailed, but the actual character model of Berserk Boy himself is too big, and sometimes you get kind of bullshit hits from how clunky and big he is as a model himself. Putting that aside, I think where this game performs the best is in actually the motion itself. Now, as you get powers, we'll talk about a little bit later, there's some areas where you will actually flow from one power to the next, and the motion is just pretty seamless, so I actually really appreciate that. The design of the levels themselves, they're fine. Some have a little bit more detail going on, but a lot of it feels like you're seeing the same background over and over and over, and they even start recycling some of the mini-bosses. It's all things we've seen before, so it's not to knock it. The game is pretty damn colorful, and I do want to give it credit. The special effects around each of the characters look pretty good. And while the overarching inspiration is definitely Mega Man, there is kind of an anime style this game goes for, but it feels very Western at the same time, so there's something that it's playing a trick with your mind as you're playing. You're like, it's not quite anime, it's not quite Western, it's somewhere in between, and it throws you off just a little bit. I think that was more my issue with the game. There was something I couldn't quite put my finger on and say, like, yeah, something seems off. Still, it's a good game to look at. When it comes to scores, I gave it a 7. Jim gave it an 8. When it comes to beer, I'm going to give it 2 for that weird, unsettling, uncanny valley of anime/Western style cartoons. I don't know.
The sound. So, let's get into the voice acting first. So, there is good and bad when it comes to this voice acting. And it depends on what you can kind of put up with. So, one thing that always annoyed me in this game a tiny bit is you don't have voice acting for every line of dialogue, which I'm actually fine with. But there's a lot of times where there's slight variations between what you're hearing read to you and what text is on the screen. And that always throws me off. The voice acting you get it's fine. It's like overacted Saturday morning cartoonish, which I think is the vibe they were going for. I just don't think it quite hit as well as it could have. Also, the audio mixing with the spoken words was weird, because sometimes it would be super loud, sometimes it was very muted. So there is something in there that needed to be fixed. And also, Brian, he just loved it every time he said, Go Berserk! Because you hear it again and again and again and again and again. Or Lightning Justice, or any of the sayings that you have as you do certain moves throughout the game with the different powers. But the shining star of this sound package is the music. So it was composed by T. Lopes, who also did Sonic Mania. And personally, I think he did a fantastic job with the soundtrack in this game. There are so many tracks that just became, instantly recognizable in my head. The main theme just becomes an earworm that you'll be humming after you're playing the game. And also the little ways he did arrangements of that main theme to coincide with major story moments. It's one of those things where if you watch anime or old cartoons, it kind of hits hard how he did it. So the music, I think, was friggin' fantastic. It might be one of the most underrated soundtracks in a retro-inspired game in quite some time. So when it comes to scores, Brian gave it a 7. I gave it an 8. I probably would have given it higher if it wasn't so up and down with the voice acting, but again, that's kind of a minor nitpick in the grand scheme of things. So when it comes to beer, I'll give it 2 beers, Brian. 1 for T. Lopes' great job on the music, and 2 for Go Berserk! Ow!
The control. If you've played any platformer like the ones we've already mentioned, then you know exactly what to expect out of this game. Run around a stage, jump, shoot at things, use your powers. There's not that much to learn, and even in some of the moves where you have to break through floors or go up, it's all very basic. If I had an issue with the control, and it's a slight one, the use of your powers, you can kind of cycle through, or you end up using this wheel. Now, I played this on Steam. I paired it to my regular controller that I use for all my Steam games, and something just always felt off. It felt like I was doing a full interruption of my gameplay, and I feel like most games that market themselves after the style of Mega Man, that's always an issue I have with those games. So this isn't just exclusive to Berserk Boy. In some of the levels, I mentioned it during the graphics, I love that they kind of auto-switch you. But let's be honest, the lightning power ends up being the go-to power you're going to use anyway. And other than some of the platforms where you say, I don't want to deal with this shit, I'm just going to fly over it. Once you get that power, you can kind of cheese through areas really easily, which actually null and voids the need to be so good at platforms or really utilizing your powers. There is a little disconnect there. Outside of that, I had no issues really learning the controls. So when it comes to scores, I gave it a 7, Jim gave it an 8. When it comes to beers, I'll give it 1 beer. Just like I said, that clunkiness can really slow down what is already a kind of fast-paced game, and it kind of takes you out of it.
The gameplay. So, when it comes to a game like this, at its core, it is a 2D platformer. You know what you're kind of going to get. You have big levels to go through, lots of jumping, lots of enemy fighting, and, like we talked about before, all the powers that you unlock through the course of the game. And that's where the real crux of the game comes in. I'll be honest with you, my first couple levels in the game, I was like, is this it? Like, it doesn't exactly grab you at first until you kind of get it, until you get more powers and you can kind of start to chain things together, switch between powers back and forth to solve little issues, or attack the levels in almost a way however you want, just because of, honestly, except for certain forced sections, you don't need to use any one power at any point. You can kind of play it as you want. Obviously, there are sections where you need to do what they want you to do, but that's kind of like a minor gripe there. One thing I found myself really loving as I got better at the game was chaining together all of my attacks. So you can build up combos. And at first you kind of think, well, these combos don't really mean anything or matter. But once you realize that if you can keep yourself the flowing of movement, jumping, hitting a person, and then doing your special attack again and keeping that chain going, you can almost like challenge yourself to just make the motion in the levels kind of really fun and almost like way more athletic than it first leads on to be. Then there's also a couple rail grinding sections, which, I mean, that just harkens right back to Sonic Adventure. And it also has kind of weird Metroidvania elements to it. So as you're going through the earlier levels, you're going to have brick walls, basically, you won't be able to get through, for lack of a better term, until you get the right power that you unlock through the boss fight to go back and open them up. And then, through the course of the levels, there's also collectibles, like these bonus chips and the resistance fighters that you try to bring back to your base. Now, the bonus chips, they only have one real use towards the end of the game, which I'll get to. And the resistance fighters, they unlock basically what are called the EX levels for each level in the game. Now you have like 15 main levels and then like one mid-level, not like mid-level, but like pre-final level, and then the actual final level. So basically 17. So with the chips, you won't be able to get to the final true last level until you get a certain number. Since it's been patched, you only need about half of the total in the game, and unless you just don't explore it all, you'll probably have that no problem. When the game first came out, you needed way more, and I guess people complained, so they lowered that thing. Where I almost kind of wish they left it in there because it would have given you more reason to keep going back to the levels. Because if you don't care about the EX levels that you get by getting all the resistance fighters in every level, and the EX levels are basically just little time attack challenge modes, and they're fun, don't get me wrong, but it's nothing you need to do, and you don't get any other real reward for getting them. The powers. Like Brian said already, the lightning's going to be the main one you use for the most part. And that's kind of disappointing that they didn't balance out your need for the powers more. Like, I wound up really liking the ice power for the combat for a little while. The flying just to, bypass a whole ton of elements. And once you get the earth power, combat in the game becomes an absolute joke. Especially if you go back and you upgrade it. And once you have unlimited ammo, like even boss fights, you can plow through them in mere seconds. Like, it just does not matter anymore with the combat. There's also all these little orbs that you collect during the course of the game, which you will use in the shop to upgrade your powers. And weirdly, the point requirements are astronomical. So if you want to upgrade and unlock every single power, you're gonna have to like really replay these levels and grind through, which it doesn't really seem all that worth it in the grand scheme of things. And again, it's stuff you don't really need, but it can make life a little bit easier. So yeah, when it comes down to it, Brian gave it a 6 and I gave it an 8. I wound up really liking the core gameplay a lot more than Brian did. He found it clunky, which, trust me, I can definitely see. But if you wind up liking it, there's a lot you can do with it. And the challenge modes are fun. Oh, and there's also 2 gameplay modes. There's like, normal and retro mode, which just normal mode you have, or they call it modern. You have unlimited lives. Retro, it gives you lives, and the enemies are a little bit harder, but it still doesn't make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things. But with all that being said, it's a very up and down experience. Brian gave it a 6. I gave it an 8. When it comes to beer, I'm going to give it 2 beers. 1 for the open-ended way you can play the game, and 2 for how the game doesn't make it open-ended enough. It's weird.
The originality is where this game suffers the most. You've heard us say it throughout this entire review. It takes heavy inspiration from Metroidvanias, from Mega Man, and it tries its best to combine these, but really it doesn't do anything new. We even tried to look at the powers themselves, and you've seen ice, you've seen lightning, you've seen all of it. I guess the only area we could maybe give it a little bit is this one seemed to focus more that your powers were used for movement and platforming purposes versus other games where it's generally just like firepower and things of that nature. But that's where the originality ends. So with that being said, we could only give it 2s. And I'm not going to lie, we struggled even to give it a 2. It's not the worst thing in the world to copy some of the most fun and famous style games, but you're not going to get points for originality. So when it comes to beer, I'm going to give it 2 just along with the score. As we've said in many reviews, it's not always the worst thing to try and copy a style. Everything doesn't need to be a unique little snowflake like Jim.
Well, fuck you too. Replayability. Everyone kind of talks about the true ending, which is what happens after you use those chips to unlock the final level. But really, as you're playing, like, you're going to do it anyway, so I can almost barely consider it like 2 separate endings. And once you do the true ending, it's not like there's different true endings. So, yeah, that's kind of weirdly technical there. The replayability comes just from if you want to go back and unlock everything and get all the EX levels and try to beat your time trials. Because once you play through the main game, you've played it, you know what to expect. If you love it, maybe you'll want to go back and, try to get perfect scores and everything, do all the achievements. That's always cool. Unfortunately for me, I played it on the Switch where there aren't achievements, so there was less reason to go back. But I enjoyed my time with it. We both gave it 5s. There's reasons to come back, but no reasons you need to come back. And when it comes to beer, I'll just add 1 for all the EX levels. That's at least a nice touch.
So overall, this is one of those games I actually would have liked probably playing on the Switch a little more or playing mobily. Like, it felt like a Game Boy Advance game. It's fun. The soundtrack is really good. The flow of platforming can be fun, but there's just something off from stopping it from being like a top tier game. And it's not really a knock. It's just an observation.
You know what it is? It feels like a good base for a franchise to come from it. And I really do hope this game does well enough sales-wise to warrant more games in it. Like, I think they're releasing, or it might be released at this point, like a little almost 8-bit-ish RPG offshoot side game of it. So, I mean, that's cool that they're trying to expand the world of this. I honestly, once I got the gameplay, I really enjoyed my time with it. It just took a while to get there, and like I said before, the combat's basically an afterthought. So you do have boss fights, but you eventually just go, okay. But yeah, I like the idea of it. I like the graphics. I loved the music. But like Brian said, there's just something that keeps it from being that next tier that would have really gotten the word of mouth to be like a super success.
Yeah. So with that, I gave it a 6. Jim gave it a 7. When we combined all of our scores, it's a 6.8. Like I said, it's just right under that tier of like, oh wow, this is a must try. This is a game that I would say if you could get on sale and you're really into that genre, you're not going to be disappointed, but I highly doubt this would be anyone's like hidden gems or top 10 games.
Yeah, and at full price, it was around $20, which isn't that bad. So honestly, it could drag more people in once it's on sale, or if it was like more 10 to 15, but I guess, you know, for all the work it goes into it, I can't price out games. One thing I do have to say, though, in this game's favor, like I said, the gameplay you're seeing is based off the Switch. I played it on the Switch. It performed perfectly fine. Like, I had no slowdown, no gameplay gaps, so even on the weakest hardware today, it played perfectly fine, so it's got that going for it.
Yeah, so with that, once again, thank you for the request. Check out the game if you're interested, and have a good night, everyone, and cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
When it comes to beer pairing, I decided to go with the Goose Island Beer Company's Neon Beer Hug. This is a pretty standard IPA coming in at 7%, but just like this game, it's not trying to recreate the wheel, but it's packaged up nicely with some cool colors, and it's a pretty solid beer all around. May not be anyone's favorite, but you won't be disappointed trying it. So if you can, grab yourself a 6-pack, sit back, and enjoy this Mega Man-inspired game. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly.